Hi, I'm Jennifer. Welcome to day 10 of my Couples That Work at Home survival series. Today, I'm going to talk about how you and your partner can stick together when you feel that you're starting to drift apart. This might sound strange, but as the days together at home all the time become weeks and then months, it's not unlikely that you might start feeling alone. And I'm not talking about the alone togetherness of virtual work, but alone at home, despite the constant presence of your partner. Working, living, and for some of us parenting too in confinement can push partners into very different worlds of their own. The reasons might be internal to the couple, external, or a mix of both. Internal reasons are usually related to what we spoke about in Instalment 6. The deal you had might mean that one of you feels relieved and the other burdened by the move to working at home. External reasons often involve work. One of you might work in an organisation that's holding up well in the crisis, or you just have a very supportive team, while the other is facing a more troubled work situation full of stress, negativity, disconnection. One of you may be anxious about losing your job, while the other is seeing their responsibilities suddenly increase. Sometimes the reasons are a mix of inside and outside for the couple. For example, one of you might be relishing the extra time with your child, even if it means working less, while the other is finding parenting and working really stressful. You can think of these demands of working and living in confinement as forces that pull you, often it seems, into opposite positions. The anxious and the confident, the restored, the exhausted, the optimist and the pessimist. That's how you land on different planets. And once we feel that we're on another planet from a partner, we withdraw, communicate less, become defensive. Before I talk about what you can do to stop drifting apart and move closer together, it's important to understand why this is happening. And it might be less about the two of you than you think. The confinement and crisis context is anxiety-provoking for most of us. And since no one likes anxiety, our brains have all sorts of mechanisms to reduce it. Psychologists call them defense mechanisms because they work to stop us feeling the anxiety, even when we can't make its source go away. On the one hand, defense mechanisms protect us. On the other hand, they can have troubling side effects. The drifting apart that some couples in confinement experience is one of these unwanted side effects of a defense mechanism called splitting. In a couple, splitting is a kind of division of emotional labor. One of you is the expresser and holder of emotions, the other bottles them up. One of you becomes hypersocial, maintaining constant connection to friends, family through video calls. The other socially isolates. One of you maintains a positive stance, the other more negative. We share the load that way, unconsciously, of course. In reality, both partners in a couple feel both sides of these poles. There are moments when we feel positive and others we feel negative. Moments when we seek connection and others where we wish to withdraw. But because holding that ambivalence, that complexity is hard, our brains, they simplify it. They choose a familiar pole and then delegate the other to someone else. And who is that someone else? Well, our partner, of course. In my research, I found that couples often share both practical and emotional labor in ways that are not always fair or welcome. Why do we do it? Because splitting offers some burdensome relief. It simplifies things, but it places a burden on the couple because they're pushed apart. When we're not aware of this dynamic, we risk blaming our drifting apart on each other. It's your fault we're on different planets. Perhaps we're just not very compatible. Well, the crisis is revealing that we shouldn't be together. In the long run, this is how couples can become estranged if they don't understand their polarization is a way to cope with a complex predicament that they're facing. If you find yourself in this position, polarizing in your couple and drifting apart, what can you do? The exercise I'm offering you today is a way to build an understanding of why this is happening and of reclaiming the parts of yourself that your partner's holding on your behalf and vice versa. As always, you can download the worksheet for this exercise from my website. More than any other installment, I see today's exercise as a conversation starter, a way to get yourselves into the conversation and begin making the investment you need to move back closer together. Of course, it alone will not bridge the distance between you, but it will help start that journey. First, it's important to figure out the spectrum along which you've split. Is it positive versus negative emotion, communication versus isolation, something else? On the worksheet you'll see I've drawn a blank spectrum which you can label and map out what the poles are and which of you is at either pole. You can draw yourselves on the 2 poles too. Next, just be a space for you to think through and write down how each of you are currently feeling sitting on your own in that pole. Work together to complete this, as there'll be things your partner sees that you don't see so well. Once you've done this, turn the tables and see how you can find the experiences that the other is expressing within you. If you're calm and your partner's frantic, for example, are there ways in which he or she is doing some work for you too? Are there frantic pockets in your day? How can you give some of the calm back to your partner? As you do that, reclaiming pieces of you that your partner might be carrying, write down what each of you can do to move towards the centre. How can you each hold, get in touch with, and express the emotions and behaviours of the opposite pole? The idea of this exercise is to lay the ground so both of you can take a step back towards the middle, closer together. It might also be helpful to revisit the mapping concerns exercise I shared in instalment 1 of this series at this point, as it might get you in touch with these opposite poles. But most important, you might want to keep this practice going, because this, I have found, is how couples stay close and help each other grow. Not by splitting the emotional labour, but by holding the complexity and emotion together. I hope you found this instalment useful and that you've enjoyed the survival series. I'll see you again.